Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to lecture number 4 of the subject of economics of environment and natural resources. I am Dr. Jangares Khan. This lecture consists of two parts. First of all, we discuss the part 1 of this lecture number 4. In this lecture, we have we will discuss some topics, while the remaining topics will be discussed in part 2 of the lecture number 4. Dear students, this lecture is based on a book written by Field and Field 2017 and some other articles and web sources, and all the details have been given at the end of part 2 of the lecture. Dear students, as you know that we started, we finished lecture unit 2 in the last lecture, and today we are starting the environment unit number 3, environmental analysis. And in this chapter, in this unit, we will discuss three topics: framework of analysis, benefit cost analysis benefits, and benefit cost analysis costs. In the first part, we will discuss these two topics, while the third topic will be discussed in the part 2 of this lecture number 4. First, we come to the framework of analysis. We know that in the previous lectures we discussed again and again in different topics that during the last 3-4 decades, the concern about the environmental issues have been increased, and this concern is increasing day by day due to the numerous problems created by the environmental degradation. We also we discussed so many environmental problems in our lecture number 2, which have been caused by different human activities, and those problems were mostly environmental problems, whether these are the acidic rains or forest resource depletion, environmental the degradation of the forest, or the climatic change, the bad weather, the extreme weather conditions. We discuss all the overfishing. All these topics are concerned, these issues are concerned with the environmental analysis. Similarly, when a project is planned, or when a new unit is established, or any type of the policy decision is taken regarding the environment, then the certain rules, certain regulations are needed for it, and these rules, these course of actions, these projects relevant to the environment, these affect our environment differently. So in this unit, we study the frameworks of analysis. We study different methods through which we can study the impact of these human activities on environment. We know that whenever a policy decision is taken, it needs some information relevant to the issue. For example, if a plant for natural gas is established, then we need that what kind of the gases will leak during the process, and certain policy decision is some information is needed to have an effective policy decision. But the accessibility of good information doesn't mean that good decision will be made. Means that the provision of the appropriate information is not the guarantee of good decisions. But its unavailability will result in bad decisions. But this is sure that if appropriate information is not available, then the decision will be bad. This is sure. But if the information is available, not necessarily always good decision, possibly the decision may not be very, very appropriate, but it will be better in case of the decision made in case of the unavailability of the information. There are a variety of alternative frameworks for generating and presenting information useful for the policymakers. I discussed earlier that we have different methods, different ways, different techniques which are useful for the policymakers during these environmental projects. A decision about actions are designed on the basis of these framework. We have impact analysis, we have benefit cost ratio, we have the cost effective analysis. These are different types of frameworks. We will discuss this in detail one by one. In the framework of analysis, the first technique is the impact analysis. The impact means the effects of an actual or proposed policy. Suppose the government or a firm is proposing a project or a policy, it will have different impact on the society, on the environment, and similarly, there are many types of the impact analysis. These impact can be of different types. These can be environmental impact analysis. These can be the economic impact analysis, and these can be different types of the impact analysis. First, we come to the environmental impact analysis. During the last 4 decades, the tendency to study the environmental issues has increased. Discussed that with the passage of time, the concern of the policymakers increases relevant to the environment due to its adverse effects on the society, on the production, on the people. The environmental impact analysis refers to identify and forecast the impact of legislative proposals, policies, programs, projects or operational procedures on the environment and on man's health and or well-being of the legislative. It is a very good definition of the environmental impact analysis, that it is to identify what environmental effects identify and forecast. Means that if the project has already been implemented, or it is even proposed, then we can identify the impact, different types of the impacts of the proposal, of the policy, of their program, of their project on environment and on the society, on the people, on the well-being of the people, on the environment. So environmental impact analysis is to identify and forecast the impact of any proposal, impact of any legislation or project or operational procedure or any policy of the government relevant to the environment, on the environment and on the well-being of the people living in the society. It is the identification and study of all substantial environment consequences stemming from a course of action. This is also a very good definition, that environmental impact analysis is nothing but it is just to identify and study the effects of a course of action on environment. Environmental impact analysis can be done for any social action, public or private, industrial, domestic, local or national. It can be carried out, the environmental impact analysis. It is one of the way to assess the effect of any social action, or that may be private or public, or that may be any national level project or local level or domestic or individual level by a firm. Any kind of the project, any kind of the action which affects the society, which affects the environment, it is under the scope of the environmental impact analysis. Environmental impact analysis traces out the physical impacts of the projects, programs, policies on the ecosystem. This is also a very good definition. I think the previous definitions have clarified it. Another definition of the environmental impact analysis is that it is a technique and a process by which information about environmental effects of a project is collected both by the developer and from the other sources, and taken into account by the planning authority in forming their judgments on whether the developmental project should go ahead. Very comprehensive definition, that environmental impact analysis is nothing but it is just to collect the information by the developer, by the person who is developing the project, who is planning the project, and from all those available sources, and this information should be provided to the planning authority, to the forum which is forming which will form the decision, which will take the decision whether this project should go ahead or not, whether this project should be launched or not. Means that if environmental a project is developed along with during the process, all the information of its impact should be collected, and it should be provided to the decision making authority, so that it may be able to share share it on the forum and take appropriate decision regarding the project, whether it should be launched or not. A question arises why we conduct the environmental impact analysis. Why environmental impact analysis conducted? We know that there is within the economy there are different economic activities, and when these economic activities are carried out, the result is the output in the form of the GNP. But we know that during this production process, not only the economy uses the inputs from different sources, natural and artificial inputs. In the economy, different different industries, different processes. During the different processes, this input is used, and we get the output in the form of the gross national product. But during this production process, certain wastes are generated. As we see different our economic units, we have the power projects in our country, we have chemical industries in our country, we have the brake industry in our country. All these have waste in the form of environmental pollution. This environmental pollution affects environment, and this due to the environmental pollution, this environment is affected, and due to the effect on the environment, there environmental degradation, there is resource depletion, and we have less available for the inputs. The environmental impact analysis studies all this, that this waste should be minimum, and the effect of this environmental degradation and resource depletion may be minimum. The process of the environmental impact analysis has been shown in this book, and this diagram taken from this is 2005. This process has the few steps we see in this diagram. That first of all, the project screening is done. It is ensured that whether environmental impact analysis is needed or not. Similarly, after so the process of the environmental impact analysis, first of all, it is ensured that whether this environmental impact analysis is necessary or not, whether it should be carried out or not. Then we move toward the scoping, means what is its scope, which impacts and issues should be considered, whether we should concentrate on environment, whether we should concentrate on the other aspects of the effects as well. Description of the project, development action and alternatives, that what is the project and what actions will be undertaken, and what will be if there are certain serious environmental impacts, then what should be the alternatives? A discussion of the environmental baseline, where these how it will affect the environment, which sector of the environment, which area of the environment, and identification of the key impacts. Then we proceed toward the prediction of the impacts, that what are the expected impacts, evaluation and assessment of the significance of impacts, identification of the mitigating measures, and similarly the presentation of the findings in the environmental impact studies, non-technical summary, a review of the environmental impact studies, and decision making. And all this should be done with the public consultation and the participation. Means in order to carry out an environmental impact analysis, the consultation of the public and their participation is very important. And after this, we move toward the post decision. Once a decision is made, then we move toward the post decision monitoring, and we see whether there has been any flaws in the decision or not, and at the end the audit of the prediction and mitigation measures are undertaken. Many countries have this is the process of environmental impact analysis. Many countries have laws for impact studies when substantial projects or programs are launched. We take a simple example. Suppose a dam is planned that will flood a certain river valley while providing new flat water recreation possibilities. Means the construction of a dam may affect the society and environment in different ways. On one way, it will flood a valley, and on the other hand, it will provide flat water recreation facilities for the visitors. It can result in the losses in animals, plants, wild river recreation, and farmland. Means that it affects the society, it affects the environment in different ways. So the planners are interested in finding out how does it affect the people, because visitors will come from different areas, not only from the region but also outside of the region, from different parts of the country, to in order to avail this recreation facility. They will definitely cause the pollution, which will result in the environmental degradation. Similarly, new housing or commercial products could also have a negative environmental effects. We can also have the example of Ghazi Brota Dam in Pakistan. This is a very planned dam with a complete environmental impact analysis, with different type of the studies, so that to reduce its environmental effects less and less. And we find the Ghazi Brota Canal from Ghazi to the Brota, the 72 kilometers canal, which is about 100 meter wide and a very deep canal, but it has been very technically planned, and we see the water level same in whole the canal, and there has been arrangements have been made for the seepage from this canal, and the water, more or less water which leaks from this canal also is thrown again into this canal, and it has been tried in this particular project. I highly appreciate this project, that environmental costs be lesser and lesser. The second type of the impact analysis is the economic impact analysis. Economic impact analysis shows how a new law, new technological breakthrough will affect the economic system. In this, we study the economic impacts. It is a method to assess the impacts of project policy on the economy as a whole, or on region, or an area. This is not limited to just only the environment, but this is also relevant to the economy as a whole, or a region, or a province, in case of our country, a province, or district, or a region. Economists are often interested in the impact of environmental projects and regulations. When a project is planned, when a law is found, when a policy decision is undertaken, then the economists are interested, the policymakers are interested in the impacts of these regulations. For example, the impact of environmental regulation on employment. That if strict environmental regulations are launched, then how will it affect the employment in the region or in the country? See the impact of import restrictions on the rate of technological change in an industry. That definitely we import the new technology in order to update our technology. If there are import restrictions on the technology, then how will it affect the technological change in our industrial sector? How will it affect the production? How will it affect the exports? Because if we restrict the technology, we restrict the imports of the updated inputs, it will affect technological changes, will reduce the output. Reduction that output will affect not only the industry but our economy as a whole. Similarly, the effects of environmental law on the growth of pollution control industry, if environmental law is launched for pollution control, then how those industries who are creating pollution in our country, who are responsible for the pollution in our society, then how they respond. The response of the food industry to new packaging regulations, and so on, and the pollution taxes for environmental improvement, so on. The third type of the impact analysis are regulatory impact analysis. A regulatory impact analysis is supposed to systematically and comprehensively identify and estimate the impacts flowing from regulations. This just study the environmental the regulatory impact analysis, the effect of the regulations, the rules, the laws in general. Many countries have requirements for doing these types of the studies. These studies differ in terms of what kind of the impact they focus on and some of the procedures to be carry them out. What will be the economic impact of new law regarding old vehicles? Suppose in order to as a pollution control measure, certain old vehicles are banned, or some lifespan is fixed for the operational vehicles in a city, in a country, in a region. Then what will be the law for the old vehicles? What will be the impact of regulations regarding pollution? Another type of the framework for analysis is the cost-effective analysis. This is also a very important tool. Suppose a community has contaminated water supply with some chemical that has to switch to some alternative supply. Suppose that a country has the problem of contaminated water. It doesn't have the safe drinking water. The water which it gets from a source, it is contaminated one, and it is in search of some alternative. It has different possibilities. It can have different approaches. It can have different choices. It could drill new wells into an uncontaminated aquifer. This is one choice. It could build a connector to water supply system of a neighboring town where the water is considered safe. It could build its own surface reservoir in which it can arrange ways, it can make arrangement for the safe water. A cost-effective analysis would estimate the cost of these different alternatives. These alternatives we defined. there can be more than these three alternative as well. But suppose we are considering these. What the cost-effective analysis does that it will estimate the cost of these different alternatives with the aim of showing how they compare in terms of say the cost per million gallon of the delivered water into the town system. They can be compared in different ways. We have these three choices. Which one is easier? Which one is permanent? Which one is in the benefit of the society? And what is the cost per million gallons, or some other scale is developed for through some other scale. The cost-effective analysis estimate the cost of these alternatives. A cost-effective analysis is used to rationalize the resource allocation decision. A cost-effective analysis, in other words, takes the objective as given, then cost out the various alternatives to achieve that objective. A cost-effective analysis seeks to find the best alternative activity or process or intervention that minimize the resource used to achieve the desired result. As we discussed in the previous slide, that in order to get rid of this contaminated water, that community is searching for the safe water, which is an alternative of this contaminated water supply. So definitely it have different choices. What it does that it will find the best alternative activity out of these three or more activities or processes, and tries to that minimize the resource use, tries to minimize the cost and the maximum output. There are a few steps in the cost-effective analysis. Identify the specific policy objective. What is the objective? What you want to do? What is the project? What is the aim of the project? What the society, what the firm, what the country, what the department want to do. Examine to what extent this objective is already met. Identify the potential sources of pressures and impacts related to the policy objective, and then the analyst decide which policy interventions can reasonably achieve the regulatory target, and the cost of policy measures need to be determined. These are the 5 steps, and the 6th step is to determine the effectiveness. The analyst, which is the policymaker, must carefully select appropriate measures of effectiveness. And finally, the cost effectiveness of different options can be inferred. For example, cost effective analysis for methane emission in a natural gas production and emission. The methane gas leaks during the production of natural gas. Whenever there is production of the natural gas, we have different fields for our natural gas. We have different in different places of our country. When the natural gas is produced, during this process we have the exertion of the release of the methane gas. So there can be different options in order to reduce the leakage of this gas. The cost effective analysis helps in finding out the best alternative in order to control the leakage of this natural gas. This is an example taken from Field and Feed 2017. The cost effectiveness of alternative means of reducing methane leaks in natural gas. These are different options, and these options are from different. We have the values from 0.1, 0.41 dollar per cubic feet per 1,000 cubic feet to the 7.6 USD. So the cost effective analysis helps us in finding out the best alternative, which is definitely the firm to use the minimum of the resources. Similarly, damage assessment is another way of the another framework of analysis through which we study the effect of the different course of actions on the environment and on the society. Damage assessment is to estimate the value of damages to an injured resource so that these amounts can be recovered from those held liable by the courts. Damage assessment is a process, it is a way of finding out the damages to some depleted resource so that the estimated cost, the estimated damage may be recovered from the people who are responsible for it. And the conclusion of the damages should be equal to the lesser of the loss of the value resource or the value of restoring the resource to its former. It should be equal to at least the loss of the value of the resource, how much we lost, and or the value of restoring it, how could it be restored. There are a few simple steps. Whether it is necessary to carry out the analysis. The first step is whether you consider it necessary to carry out this analysis, this damage assessment. If yes, then go estimate the damage and estimate the forecast the benefit. The final step of the equivalency analysis is to identify the scope or extent of the restoration of the project which is to be implemented. While identifying the scope of the project, one should follow a principle so that the amount of service to be earned in a certain time period, a result of the project implementation, equals to the previously emerged damage. We can explain it with this example. We have this simple example that due to a process, the lost value of there are two options we have, that if you use this alternative, the lost value is $1.2 billion and restoration cost is 0.6 million, while in the second we have the lost value 1.6 and the restoration cost is 3.8. Definitely this option A is preferred because the restoration cost is less than the loss in the value. We see there that the value of this due to this the hazardous waste of the oil, we see that in case A, the resource value loss from an oil or hazardous waste release is 1.2 million as I discussed, while the restoration is 0.6. So this is the best choice. As compared to this, in case of this B, we have the lost value 1.6 and restoration value 3.8. Therefore, the former would be used to assess the damage. That means that this is not the good decision. We should go for this first choice. The lost economic values associated with the reduction in the quality of natural resource can stem from many sources. Similarly, we can have also we can estimate such a damage system, damage assessment through the on-site recreation such as camping, hiking, or snowmobiling. All these activities harm the environment, so we should also go for a different alternate source to assess the damage. Similarly, the extractive use of the natural resource such as energy production and mining, use of stream flows for irrigation, municipal and industrial water supplies and transportation services also have impacts, also damage the environment. So this also should be assessed. Currently, restoration costs are the preferred measure for damages. Restoration costs are defined to include these are the preferred measures of damages. That it is difficult to estimate the damage to the resource, but the restoration cost is easy to calculate. For example, if you lose the natural beauty of a camping site, then its restoration costs include its restoration, rehabilitation, replacement, or the acquisition of the equivalent resources. Green GDP has come to be regarded as a measure of overall GDP. Before green GDP, we not come to the GDP. You are students of economics. You know better that GDP, gross domestic product, is the value of all final goods and services produced in a country during the course of a year. But this GDP is used as a welfare criteria as well. You have students of economics, you may have studied different the welfare criteria, Bentham criteria, Adam-Smith criteria, and so many other criteria. And one of the criteria is, mostly it is considered that increase in the GDP leads to increase in the overall well-being of the people. But it is just approximation. We know that GDP is just approximation. It omits activities that do not trade in the market as observed prices, such as a black market good, the home production of goods and services of a family, the services of a mother, the services of a father, if you repair your own cars, and there are so many services which are not included in the GDP. So the GDP is just approximation. I'm not going into the detail because you have already studied this in the previous classes in your subject of the macroeconomics. GDP also omits services of environment. This is also a very important factor. The services of a clean air or water are not directly included, nor are the cost of dirty air or water, except in so far they might lead to purchase of goods that protect against pollution, such as air water filters are undertaken. The concept of the green GDP is based on the idea of making reasonable comprehensive adjustment to the standard GDP measures to adjust for changes in the value of the natural resources and services produced from them. Means that environment factor is also undertaken in the green GDP. The concept of green GDP aims to account for not only the economic output but the output of all ecosystems within nation or within regions. Means that the green GDP is include not only the production of those goods and services, but also the cost, subtraction of the cost given to the environment. The green GDP is an indicator of economic growth with environmental impact on that growth factored into the traditional GDP. Accounting for ecosystem services is necessary for sustainable process or system. That in 2017, that it is important that while we study the sustainable processes or the systems, or we study the economy as a whole, then we should take into account the ecosystem services as well. It is very interesting that the differences between the Thailand GDP and green GDP is about 2% due to the degradation cost of GHG emissions, with their ability in the ratio of GDP to green GDP across different sectors. Similarly, the green GDP led to the green economy. Green economy is an economy that improves the human well-being and social equity while reducing the environmental effects. And benefit cost analysis, this is another important framework for the analysis through which we study the environment effects on environment, where we compare the benefits and costs. The benefit cost analysis is for the public sector. Whenever the public sector is according to the field and feed, this is as I discussed in the beginning of the lecture, this topic has been the material in this topic is from Feed and Feed 2017 book, 7th edition. That benefit cost analysis is considered. It is conducted for public sector just like the profit loss analysis for a business firm or for private sector. If an automobile company introducing a new car, it will be willing to get an idea of how its profitability will be affected. It would estimate the cost of production and distribution, that is the cost of labor, raw material, energy, emission control equipment, and transportation. It will estimate, it will collect, it will aid, it will sum up all the costs, whether they are relevant to the production or whether they are relevant to the distribution, whether they are relevant to the output or to the input. Moreover, it will estimate revenues through market analysis. Similarly, initial stage, initially it will estimate the cost, and it would then estimate or forecast its revenues on the basis of the market prices. Then it compares expected revenues and anticipated costs. Benefit cost analysis is an analogous exercise for programs in the public sector. Benefit cost analysis involves measuring, adding up, comparing all of the benefits and all of the costs of a particular public sector project or program. Benefit cost analysis is actually a procedure. It is a technique in which we measure, in which we collect, in which we estimate all the benefits and costs of a project or of a public program, public sector program, and then we compare the costs and benefits. If the benefits are greater than the cost, then we say that the project should be launched, the project is valid, otherwise it is revised or it is postponed for some period, or some alternative is considered. There are simple steps. We have few very simple steps of the benefit cost analysis. We specify, first of all, specify clearly the project or program, that what program in the public sector is launched, what are the objectives of the program, whether it is a productive program or it is public welfare program, whether the government expects revenue from it, when are the revenues expected. So we first of all we specify the program, then describe quantitatively the inputs and outputs of the program, what inputs will be used and what will be the outputs as discussed. Estimate the social costs and benefits of these inputs and output, and compare these benefits and costs. In the benefit cost analysis, as I discussed, that we have to estimate the cost and the revenues. This is the benefit. We have to estimate the benefit and cost, and then we have to compare. So first let us discuss one by one what are the benefits in the how to calculate the benefits in the benefit cost analysis and how to estimate the cost. In this part 1 of the lecture, we will discuss the benefits which will be calculated through different ways for the benefit cost analysis. Out of these benefits, we first come to the damage function, the physical aspects. This is one of the way, as I telling you, dear students, again and again, that in this section we discuss generally what the benefit cost analysis is. We discuss generally, we defined the benefit cost analysis. Here we define the benefit cost analysis, and after defining the benefit cost analysis, we are interested in its benefits and the cost. What are the different approaches, what are the different ways to estimate the benefits, what are the different techniques to estimate the cost. So let us first discuss the benefits for the benefit cost analysis, and one of the way is the damage function or physical in which we study the physical aspects. When environmental degradation occurs, it produces damages. Whenever there is a course of action, whenever there is a project is launched and it results in environmental degradation, it will produce damages. The benefits of environmental quality improvement stem from reduced damages in this would produce. This is a very simple way of the calculation of the benefits, that if you are interested in finding the benefits, what will be those benefits? Those benefits will be in form of the reduced damages. Because if the environmental quality is improved, then reduced damages will occur. To measure an emission function, it is necessary to go through the following. Suppose that there is an emission of a certain gas or some other pollutant from certain course of action. So what we do, we go through these few steps, that we measure the emission, what is emitted, whether the methane is leaked out or some other gas is leaked out or some impurity is leaked out or some there is some other pollutant is leaked out. Determine the resulting level of the ambient quality through the use of the diffusion models. Then you use different models to measure what kind of what is level of this exertion and how it is affecting the outdoor quality of air or environment, and estimate the resulting human exposure that this ambient level this ambient field would produce. Similarly, then we have to estimate the effect of that how the humans are exposed within and outside of the boundary of the firm or outside the project, that how it is affected, how much humans are exposed to it, and estimate the physical impact of these exposure levels, determine the values associated with these physical impact. For example, environmental pollution is threat to human health, no doubt, and we have discussed this again and again in the different topics relevant to the environmental economics, that environmental pollution in any form is a threat to the human health, whether it is air pollution, whether it is noise pollution, whether it is soil pollution, whether it is air pollution, it will result in damage to the human health. For example, air pollution increase mortality and morbidity among people exposed to it. We know that the air pollution, this affects this on our mortality rate. Similarly, the illness of the people, we know that those people who are exposed to it, they suffer from different diseases. One of such pollutants is sulfur dioxide. We know that sulfur dioxide is one of the pollutant which is released from different industries, and diseases such as bronchitis, lung cancer, and asthma are thought to be traceable in part of the polluted air. The research shows that lung cancer, different types of the chest diseases like asthma and bronchitis, these are the result of the polluted air. Water pollution also causes health damages through the contaminated water drinking supplies, and if the industrial waste is thrown into a source, a water supply source, or when it is located near the water supply source, then differently it result in the contaminated water supply, which affects the humans and those people who use the contaminated drinking water. They are prey of different water-borne diseases like typhoid, like diarrhea, like hepatitis. So the measurement of the human health damage of environmental pollution is a critical task for environmental economies. This is very important to estimate such damage, and many factors affect human health: lifestyle, diet, genetic factors, age, and so on, besides even ambient pollution levels. Dear students, we are after damage function. We measure the damage. These as we discussed. I was discussing the damages. The damage function to calculate the benefits, and we discussed that these, if we reduce those damages, definitely we will get the benefits, and we can measure those benefits. We can measure the damage directly and indirectly. First, we come to the estimation of the damages directly. There are a number of situations where it is possible to measure directly the monetary cost of the health and other type of the outcomes. The damages caused by the environmental degradation or the pollution or the release of the other gases can easily be calculated. There are different ways to calculate such damages, and one of the way is to measure directly is the health cost. We know that the diminished air, polluted air, and low water quality impacts on the human health. I discussed in this previous slide that the contaminated water supply and water pollution or air pollution, this affects the human health. One approach to assessing damages in this case is to estimate the increased medical and other costs associated with a particular pollution-related illness. We can estimate the cost borne by the workers or by the society located near their project or their industry in form of the visits, in form of the prescriptions in different forms. And this approach of the calculating the estimate or finding the estimate to increase medical and other costs which is associated with, which is relevant to, which is due to pollution borne disease or diseases, this is called the cost of illness approach. The estimation of the increased cost, medical cost caused by the pollution is called cost of illness. For example, a disease that has increased rapidly in recent years and that such as believed may be related to air pollution, and the estimates are divided into direct and indirect costs. Please that suppose that due to in a locality there are different industries, and it is estimated that the people living in that area are working in those industries, they suffer from a certain disease, and the number of patients in that locality has increased in the recent year. Then we can divide the estimates of such estimates into two parts, direct and indirect costs. Direct costs are the costs of medical visits to hospitals or doctors together with costs of medication used to fight asthma. Asthma, you know that this is a breathing disease, a chest disease, which is caused by different reasons, and one of the reasons is the air pollution. So direct costs can be estimated in the form of the medical visits to hospitals or doctors. We can easily get the number of the patients who visited to hospitals or to doctors in a particular period of time due to cure for the pollution-borne disease asthma. Similarly, indirect costs are related to the opportunity cost of lost work of time for people who become ill. Similarly, we can estimate the data. We can estimate, get the data from the different firms of those employees who remain ill for a certain period due to the asthma or due to the different pollution-borne diseases. Similarly, indirect costs can be lost of school days, lost economic productivity of people who die permanently from asthma. With the cost of illness perspective, the benefits of pollution control are the reduced health-related costs they produce. So if the pollution is controlled, then the medical costs will be reduced. This is one of the estimate of the benefits. This could be regarded as minimum or lower bound and assessment of these benefits because the improved health also produces better quality of life for those who are impacted. Many researchers in the health area have sought to create health indices that capture the improvement in the physical health parameters that less environmentally pollution would produce. This is another approach that we can develop an index to find out the different health parameters of the people who have been affected by the pollution. In this chart, we see that this is an example taken from Field book. We see that these are the different direct costs, the prescription, inpatient care, output care, office visits, home health, emergency room, and others. And the indirect costs are which are work-related costs. That is the leave loss of the working hours is 13. So by adding the direct and indirect costs, we get the total cost. Similarly, the effects of pollution on production costs. This is another, we can measure it directly. The air pollution, we know that reduce yields of the crops which are exposed to it. Similarly, the air pollution, if it increase, reduce the growth rates of the commercially valuable timber. Similarly, water pollution affects firms and municipalities dealing in water for purposes or for domestic production purposes or domestic use. We know that mostly in the towns, the different firms and municipalities they provide water to the society, to the locality for drinking and other domestic use. Similarly, they also provide it for the production use. But if this water is contaminated, then these firms and municipalities will definitely be affected, because it is possible that the people may start purchase of water from these firms and municipalities, or they may also go for some other sources, thereby reducing the revenue of the firms and municipalities. Similarly, the diminution of water quality has negative impact on commercial fishing industries, because if water is contaminated, then those people who are operating in the commercial fishing industry, they will lose production. And similarly, soil contamination has also various impacts on agriculture production. We know that the work pollution, the pollution in the workplace, it reduces the effectiveness of workers on one side, and on the other hand, it increases the rate of at which the machinery and buildings will deteriorate. We know that the depreciation cost will increase. In all these cases, the effects of pollution are felt on the production and production of goods and services. In all these, we discuss whether the pollution is the workplace, or it is air pollution, or it is water pollution, or soil pollution, or in all kinds of these different forms of the pollution. We see that the effects of the pollution are felt on production of goods and services. The damage caused by pollution comes about because it interferes in some way with these production processes, in effect making it more costly to produce these output than it will be in less polluted world. In all these cases, if we produce the agriculture output in absence of pollution and with pollution, there will be difference between the output. Production with contaminated water, and production without contaminated water. We can note the effect difference in the production. How we actually measure the production-related benefits of the reducing pollution depends on the circumstances, depends on the condition, depends on the purposes, on the objective. Suppose we are looking at a small group of agriculture producers living in a certain region who will be affected by reduced airborne emissions coming from an upwind factory. The pollutants from the factory have depressed yields, so reducing emission will cause yield to increase. And the crop being produced is sold in a national market, and its price will be unaffected by the output changes in the region. We can explain this in this diagram. S1 is the supply curve of the supply curve of farms before the improved quality, air quality. This is in the polluted quality, and we see that when the supply line is S1, we have the output as Q1 and the price P1, and we see this this S2 is the supply curve after improved air quality. When some certain measures are undertaken to improve the quality of air, then the supply curve of this farm increase to S2. and the output increases to Q2, and increase in the output can be from when the supply curve moves from S1 to S2. We see that the output increases from Q1 to Q2, means increase in the output can be calculated by subtracting Q1 from Q2, as shown in this slide. If we look at the diagram, then the total output, the total output before the change, means before improvement in the quality, is A plus B plus C. A plus B plus C is the total output, B plus C is the cost, so A is the income. We see that before our change, the total output is A plus B plus C. This one, A plus B plus C. Total cost is B plus C. Yes, this one, B plus C is the cost. So definitely this region A is the income. Then we see that when the change occurs, when the certain measures are undertaken, regulations are implemented, we see increase in the supply curve of this form to S2, and we see more output, and in this case we see the total output is A plus B plus C plus D plus E. A plus B plus C plus D plus E. In this, when the S2 is the supply curve, and in this case we see that C plus E is the cost, so we subtract this cost. C plus E is the A plus D plus C is I, or A plus B plus C plus D plus E. The situation after change, this one, A plus B plus C plus D plus E. This is the total output. C plus E is the cost. Yes, C plus E is the cost. So if we subtract this from the total output, we get net income A plus B plus D. Now in this case, A is already the income before the change. So if we subtract this A, we get increase in the income as B plus D. Another way to estimate the damage directly is the material damage. The air pollutants cause damage to the exposed surfaces, metal surfaces of the machinery, stone surfaces of buildings, painted surfaces of all types of the items. We know that the air pollution damage the surfaces of the materials which are exposed to it. Example of, for example, the sulfur compounds, particulate matter, oxidants, and nitrogen oxide. These are the exposed pollutants which affect the different surfaces, different material, and mostly damages from increased deterioration that must be offset by increased maintenance and earlier replacement. And due to these pollutants, what we see that not only these materials are damaged, and when these materials are damaged, the cost which incurs on its maintenance and early replacement is actually the damage due to these pollutants. The basic physical relationships may be investigated in the laboratory, but in application to any particular area, one must have data on various amounts of the exposed material that actually exists in the study region. It is possible to estimate the total amount of materials deterioration that would occur in an average year of exposure to the year of region with its normal loading of various pollutants. One must then put a value to the deterioration. Taking a strict damage function approach, we could estimate the increased cost of maintenance made necessary by this deterioration, but this would be an underestimate of the true damage from willingness to pay perspective. Part of damage would be static, the reduced visual values of the less sightly buildings and painted surfaces. We might arrive at these values through the continuous evaluation methods, means that we have different method to indirect method as well to estimate such costs, and these will be discussed in the lecture number 4, 5 and 6. There are few problems with direct damage approach, and the basic problem with direct damage estimate is that they are almost always seriously incomplete. because the procedure is a little bit complicated one, so much is left in the damage estimate. And consider the case of manufacturing health damage by lost productivity and medical expenditures. Sometimes it is difficult to estimate, make such estimates. We note first that these tend to be the market measures. This method also assign a zero value to the person with disabilities and unable to work or to retire. Similarly, due to these pollutants, due to the pollution, it is possible that some of the people may retire earlier, or they may not be unable, they may suffer from disabilities. There are also numerous monetary as well as physical benefit received by others, friends, relatives. For example, that the productivity measure does not account for, nor does it account for the pain or suffering of all this. These factors are not undertaken into the calculation of the direct method. Another major problem with attempts to measure the damage function directly is that the people and market normally will change and adjust to environmental pollution, and a full accounting of damage estimate must take these adjustments into account. Sometimes the people who are exposed to it, they try to adjust by adopting different measures. If they adopt different measures through adjustment, then it is difficult to estimate such damages. And farmers raising crops affected by pollution may shift to other crops. Similarly, if a crop is affected by contaminated water or by the air pollution or other kind of the pollution, if the farmers change the crop, then also it will be difficult to estimate the damage. There is also some other methods for estimating the damage function which are not directly. One of such method is willingness to pay. These are the estimating methods. We will discuss the willingness to pay approach in detail in the next coming chapters. People willingly to pay for the environmental quality improvement. People are willing to pay. People have their desire to pay for the environmental quality. For example, high speedways, motorways, expressways, roads create noise pollution due to the high traffic. The people living nearby suffer from this type of pollution, and suppose we are interested in finding out the willingness of people to pay for reducing the noise pollution. We ask the people how much they are willing to pay in order to reduce this noise pollution. Then there are also different ways to calculate such methods. There are three ways to measure the reducing noise. They may have installed additional insulation in walls themselves to reduce the noise pollution. They have made arrangement to reduce the noise pollution. This show willingness to pay for reducing the noise pollution because they have extra cost on additional insulation. This is called averting behavior. This approach is called averting behavior, in which the people have spent in order to avoid this noise pollution. This pollution may affect the prices of houses in the area because the houses which are located near the source of the noise, they may be have less price, and the houses which are located away from this source of noise, they may have high price. Contingent valuation methods is another way. As I discussed, we will discuss it in the next 2 units, that we go and ask the people through a survey. We conduct a survey. We go to the people and ask them how much they are willing to pay in order to avoid this noise, in order to skip this pollution. How much they are willing to pay. Different not noise pollution. For example, we had conducted a study in Peshawar, willingness to pay, analysis of willingness to pay for safe drinking water in district Peshawar. Similarly, analysis of willingness to pay for better solid waste management services in Peshawar. In both those cases, we used the contingent valuation method. We conducted a survey. We went to the household and asked them how much they are willing to pay in order to skip the in order to have the safe drinking water, or to get rid of the solid waste. The first two methods are revealed preference, while the third is a stated preference method. There are certain problems in the cost benefit estimation. Good data are always hard to come by. It is reliable data is sometimes difficult to receive. Better techniques are always useful to separate out the effects of other factors and isolate the true environmental impacts. And more thought has to be given to the conceptual problem than remain, and we will indicate very briefly some of the problems which are relevant to the benefit cost method, especially the estimation of the benefits, and this is the end of the part 1 of lecture number 4.